Palace of the Dead is a Final Fantasy XIV roguelike deep dungeon mini-game that you unlock as part of your main story questline leveling process. To us, WoW players migrating to Final Fantasy XIV, this is an immediate and very direct comparison to Torghast, the Tower of the Damned. Even the name is somewhat similar, I would argue. Hi and welcome back to the channel, I'm your host Gyro. If you're new here, particularly warm welcome to you. I'm one of those WoW veterans who recently thought that enough is enough and joined the newbie ranks in Final Fantasy XIV. And I've been enjoying my journey in the game so far quite immensely, as my previous couple of videos have been documenting for you. If you're interested in more details and haven't watched those Chronicles of Gyro just yet, please feel free to do so and catch up with the rest of us here. In this video I'll talk to you about Palace of the Dead, as yet another feature of Final Fantasy XIV that I've discovered very recently. And I will be comparing it to Torghast from World of Warcraft through and through, as always expressing my honest and very unapologetic opinion about both features of both games. For my Final Fantasy XIV people, a very brief intro into the history of Torghast, what it is and what it isn't, because I can't assume that you know what it is. And if you are only interested in the Palace of the Dead thoughts, as always, please use the video chapters in the description of the video and the timeline to fast forward ahead. Now, Torghast, the Tower of the Damned, was promised to be a central feature of World of Warcraft Shadowlands, attracting a massive amount of attention from many of us World of Warcraft fans, back then at least, promising to capitalize on an already very good feature back then of the previous expansion, which was called Battle of Azeroth, the horrific visions. It was a feature of patch 8.3. We all knew that Torghast was going to be different, but still a self-paced, solo-friendly adventure and experience that casuals could make their centerpiece of the whole game if they weren't interested in, say, raiding or doing Mythic Plus dungeons, which are basically two key activities anyone can do in World of Warcraft endgame these days. I personally have loved the horrific visions of BFA patch 8.3 because it was a very similar self-paced, casual-friendly progression system, except it also gave us a gearing system that was built into it. So naturally I was hoping that Torghast will do exactly the same and more, thinking, well, Blizzard knows their own people. They know what, that for us it's all about the loot, what's good for us, what's not good for us. And I thought, okay, with this Torghast feature, it's going to be like the best of Horrific Visions and Island Expeditions. That's what everyone thought in World of Warcraft community. Final Fantasy XIV people need to understand that we, World of Warcraft people, we are genuinely starved for any interesting, cool, wacky, OP content that will make us feel like the game is actually fun. Torghast looked like that kind of go crazy with no consequences, almost like a lab environment, a mini game environment. At least it looked like that during the beta of Shadowlands expansion, and that made every bored casual very, very excited, kind of attached to our screens as we were watching some beta footage from the other content creators from World of Warcraft space. Even though I personally still wanted to get some loot out of Torghast, and no loot was promised, mainly because I just couldn't imagine grinding raids or dungeons for loot progression as kind of a default natural power progression for any character in most MMORPGs, really, like you have to agree with me. What we got in Torghast were the sterile, bland, repetitive corridors and same mobs everywhere, with no particular fun of exploration either, no particular sense of danger, mostly slowing down and annoyance, and no real reward in the end. Additionally, they've locked in the only method of acquiring a certain material, soul ash, that is required to craft the most powerful gear in World of Warcraft behind Torghast. They locked it behind it. So if you want to tell me that that was the reward, well, it was a chore. It became a chore because you had to run Torghast even if you didn't want to, if you hated the process, simply to get Soul Ash as the material to have a somewhat meaningful and open to casuals character power progression in the end game. Does it make sense? So Torghast basically ended up this boring, unrewarding chore that you had to do, and surprise, surprise, it turned most of us off it pretty quickly. I do not know of many people who loved Torghast in its repetitive nature, only getting Soul Ash in the end, after, I don't know, the really short honeymoon period into Shadowlands as the expansion was over. And yes, running ahead of myself, Palace of the Dead is a very similar concept and mechanic, but as a feature positioned very differently in Final Fantasy XIV as a game, which is why I think it feels much better. Now let's talk about Palace of the Dead, a mini game, really a mini game, you unlock as part of your leveling process along the main story questline, I believe, because I didn't steer off main story questline so far much at all, and if I unlocked it, it means that you will unlock it too. Nobody forces you to do it, and from what I can tell, there are no rewards, no loot, no XP gains, nothing. Yes, I wish there was, by the way. And if you somehow tell me, hey, you actually get something if you beat it, you'll make this casual game a very happy. Comment section down below is all yours. So, Palace of the Dead, why do I like it? And why does it feel different to Torghast? Because, spoiler alert, in case you didn't read between the lines, I hate Torghast. Probably I like Palace of the Dead because of how unpretentious it is. It's a mini game for you to chill and rest away from rather repetitive messenger quests, where the main story quest line of A Realm Reborn made me go between, let's say, several locations to collect wine and bring it back and all that. They made it worth my while in the end with an awesome little pet, and generally I like Final Fantasy XIV so far, so I kinda don't mind it too much, but that's beside the point. So this deep dungeon, as they label it, minigame, doesn't hide that it tries to be something different, woven right into Final Fantasy XIV core or main game. It even uses pixelated art to remind us that it's a classic roguelike game structure built in for your amusement purely. How awesome is that? Maybe you need to be born in the 70s or 80s to appreciate it, I don't know, but from the very first second of me seeing it, I was like, yes, please, awesome, sign me up. Palace of the Dead is basically a Torghast miniature. You unlock it through the questline, you queue up, it ports you in as an alternative reality type of character, I don't know what is the better way to describe it, where you're back at level 1 with no extra spells available, and you have to relearn all of them basically. So at that point in time, a level 3 mob can kick your ass if you're not careful. You level up very quickly, especially at first, like from killing one mob you gain a level, from killing another mob you gain another level, so they don't make you wait, which is fantastic. It creates a sense of progression very quickly. You learn your own skills from your current class and job, walking around, killing mobs, collecting treasure, which is basically, for my WoW players, those treasures are anima powers from Torghast. Same thing. Those local anima powers, I think they're orbs, I think all of them are orbs, they aren't as plentiful, but the levels are also microscopic, tiny, compared to Torghast. Purpose is very clear. Be careful on the way, kill enough mobs, open as many treasure chests as you can find, boost your power in the process, because you do between levels, it gives you some extra power, and you also boost them by gaining some extra treasures, and meet the criteria required to unlock the next level. So once you killed enough mobs, once you've explored the level, there is basically a teleport that allows you to go to next level. As I understand it, there are levels 1 to 10, but I suspect that Palace of the Dead is not finishing there. I suspect there are more once you probably have beaten level 10. Unfortunately, I didn't beat the end boss of level 10. But as the footage in the background would hopefully show, I'll try to cut it in, I thought I've done not badly for a white mage noob. Not sure what I've done wrong either, because I think that I've done pretty well and even saved some power orbs deliberately for the final boss fight. I actually thought that I'm gonna get him. I thought I will. But somehow it just didn't happen, which doesn't matter. It really doesn't. What's intriguing is the slower and more investigative nature of your character progress through Palace of the Dead, I think, compared to Torghast still. You don't charge through. You kinda take your time, look for corners to skip mobs, and are genuinely happy when you find like Orb of Sight that reveals the map and the treasures, or Orb of Safety that disables all the traps. I don't know what it is precisely about this most basic of minigames that is also not plentiful. Well, there are no rewards at all, but it was real fun for me somehow. It was. And it took me close to 50 minutes to get to level 10 and die to the end boss. I've sped up the footage obviously in the background in a few places to make it fit, and I made a lot of cuts there. There was also a cinematic cut in showing some sinister presence in that Palace of the Dead. I would be surprised if there was none. That detected me as I was progressing through the levels, said a couple of words, but the boss that I fought at level 10 wasn't this person or creature, from what I can tell. So I can only assume that there is a further content ahead, which is wonderful. I love a little bit of mystery and something to look forward to. Especially when it's not mandatory for my character progression in the game. And that is where I think, like I said already, the fundamental design flaw of Torghast and the key difference from Palace of the Dead lies. The mandatory chore-like nature of boring as hell and rather lengthy journey through Torghast that Blizzard has gotten, in my opinion, horribly wrong, not giving WoW players something like, horrific visions of BFA 8.3 that were an alternative character progression system, and not creating a different experience which would be just a fun little getaway. So that's where they've gone wrong, in my opinion, Blizzard. So I loved Palace of the Dead. I will go back to it again once I'm done with the priority 1 things that I'm having right now, such as unlocking flying and getting out of ARR to experience broader set of dungeons and an allegedly much better storyline that you all keep telling me about. Bring it on, I say. So I have enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this video a little bit. I hope if you're one of those new people from World of Warcraft who are coming to Final Fantasy XIV, I hope you learned something from this and it's something for you to look forward to. Talk to me in the comments down below without spoiling too much if you can. Don't tell me everything about Palace of the Dead, but talk to me in the comments down below. What was your experience like with it? Is there anything else for me to look forward to in Palace of the Dead? And anything else that comes to your mind on this topic. Thanks very much for tuning in. I'll be speaking with you once again about something Final Fantasy XIV related, no doubt, very soon. See you later. Bye bye.